Tesla's starting to look like a mainstream type of meme, so to speak.
I guess the question is what we should read into this postponement, whether this suggests that the project is fundamentally flawed in some way.
We're probably getting closer to this robo-taxi opportunity.
Potential delay in that event puts Tesla as a new entrant further out and does throw some cold water on Musk's characteristically ambitious claims.
You do have this unreliable or lack of credibility with the narrator now that's starting to emerge.
All that and more. So let's get to it. Oh boy. Mama said there would be days like this. There'd be days like this. My mama said. After yesterday, for the week, Tesla is down about 6%, sitting at 236.88. The stock got as high as 270 yesterday. At its peak, we had news segments like this.
What does this earnings season mean for companies that are so detached from fundamentals that they've essentially ended up in this bucket of the meme trade?
There's been a lot of talk about Tesla. We kind of like the Magnificent Seven minus Tesla. Again, we just find Elon Musk very erratic. Love what he does, scientist, Doc, and Back to the Future type of guy. But this company's lowering prices. If you look in the video, they can raise prices, and Microsoft and some of these other companies, Costco this morning, raising their membership as you covered. But when you kind of look at Tesla, they've been lowering prices, and we don't like that. So that stock has gone up, 100 points in the last few weeks. I think ahead of fundamentals, considering they're lowering prices. So that, to me, is, again, I wouldn't go near a GameStop, AMC. That's been a long time talking about those type of things, Soaring Kitty and all that stuff. But right now, Tesla's starting to look like a mainstream type of meme, so to speak, because of this huge run it's had, maybe fueled by short covering initially. And maybe we're wrong. Maybe the sum of the parts are greater than the whole, and that's why it's trading like that. But I suspect it's a little bit more than that. So I'd be careful buying Tesla at these levels.
Doesn't like Tesla because they're lowering prices. I suppose that would be fair if you were to assume that they're lowering prices because there's no demand for their vehicles. They couldn't possibly be trying to open up the total addressable market, selling as many vehicles as they possibly can, because there will be enormous revenue streams after the individuals purchase the product. That couldn't possibly be it, right? Right?
I guess the question is what we should read into this postponement, whether this suggests that the project is fundamentally flawed in some way, or whether this is just kind of tweaking the design towards perfection for Musk.
And then that happened. This, among other things, led to the stock falling about 8.5%. A report that Tesla's going to delay their Robotaxi event by a couple of months. They're not scrapping it. They haven't abandoned it. No one knows why it could possibly be delayed. Yet the stock makes this move. Now I know S&P, the Qs, they were all down, but Tesla was down a little bit more than the rest.
Yeah, that's right, Tom. I think that is really the big question. I mean, they've delayed it perhaps by a couple of months to give the team a little bit more time to make some tweaks. But is that really the whole story here? Because we've seen, for instance, Elon Musk, someone who has a very strong belief and really believes that future of the robo-taxi, sort of making these timelines and then blowing right past them for several years now. So 2 months, or could it be a little bit more? There certainly seems to be a lot more work perhaps that needs to be done to the vehicle. And from people outside of Tesla, of course, there's a lot that we just don't know yet. I mean, is this a car that's going to be affordable? Is it going to have different features like a steering wheel, for instance? There's just really a lot that is still to be told. And when you kind of look at the landscape around Tesla and around robotaxis, you think about the likes of Cruise or Waymo in the US, they've been working very hard and spending billions of dollars on these projects to date, and they still haven't gotten that far.
They not like us. They not like us.
It's certainly priced into the stock because it's very expensive. It's one of the most expensive in the S&P 500 index. It's trading around 90 times forward earnings. So again, the robotaxi being pushed back at 10% sort of enthusiasm. Not for everyone, that should also be said as well, because there's well-known bulls around the Tesla stock. Kathy Wood, for instance, is one of them from ARK Investment Management, and we spoke to her earlier today for her views on Tesla as well. Take a listen.
That just tells me that we're probably getting closer to this robo-taxi opportunity, not further away. He wants to show us something more I think, awe-inspiring than we might have seen on August 8th. And he believes it's possible by October. And so, yes, and what does that mean? It means that analysts will have to build into their models.
Oh, Kathy Wood, we know, is someone who is a long-time bull on Tesla and still managing to make bad news into good news.
Bad news would be that they are scrapping the Robotaxi project. No longer wasting resources on FSD. That would be bad news. A 2-month delay? I'm with Kathy on this, ladies and gentlemen. I need to know why. And until I do, speculation just isn't going to cut it. I didn't have high hopes on August 8th. Maybe a display of what it looks like in the app. Get a look at what ride hail is going to look like in the future. See what this vehicle actually looks like. These are things I believe that they could do right now, today. So for them to push it back, there has to be a good reason.
Tesla is reportedly delaying the unveiling of its Robotaxi to October from August. That's sending Tesla shares down 6% today and shares of Uber in the opposite direction by nearly as much. Deirdre Bosa has more in today's Tech Check. Deirdre?
Kelly, I mean, that chart says it all, right? The reports not just impacting Tesla, but the rideshare companies. You mentioned Uber, Lyft also popping on that headline. They've been very volatile around Tesla's Robotaxi announcements. Investors concerned that their existing rideshare networks could be threatened by Musk's ambitions. A potential delay in that event puts Tesla as a new entrant further out and does throw some cold water on Musk's characteristically ambitious claims. An underappreciated threat, though, may actually be Waymo.
That clown car?
That's the Google self-driving subsidiary. It opened up to the public here in San Francisco just a few weeks ago, and it's running on its own rideshare network, delivering tens of thousands of weekly trips. I spoke to an investor recently who's short Uber because he thinks that Waymo could eat into its market share in places like San Francisco and LA, and that could spook investors. Aside from robotaxis, though, there's other issues weighing on the rideshare complex. Yesterday, Uber and Lyft were lower as Massachusetts pushes ahead with a ballot question that would give gig economy drivers the right to form a union, which again, Kelly, underlines that regulatory risk around human drivers that are categorized as independent contractors in the gig economy. That is, of course, the bull case for robotaxis. They would eliminate that risk factor. It may just take longer to get there for Tesla, at least.
A couple of things. First, Waymo, that clown car, that's an expensive machine. To the point where it costs the same as if you were to have a driver in the vehicle. Impressive, has its uses, but I would consider it a lateral move from having a taxi or an Uber. If you're able to remove all of that expensive equipment and still have a wonderfully perfectly safe drive, you're able to reduce the cost per mile dramatically. Tesla is the only one pursuing this, and though it may take some time, they are closer than a lot of people give them credit for. I'm not saying Uber and Lyft, they're going to be obsolete. I'm just saying that they're going to have to change their business model dramatically if they're going to compete with a driverless robotaxi.
Well, this isn't as dramatic a move as you might hope, I imagine. Yeah, and I mean you specifically, Ron, because of your sell rating here. But what does it say? This was the Robotaxi event that Elon Musk announced some months ago, kind of rescued the stock. It was on the decline. He said, oh, we're going to do this event. People got excited. And now it's getting pushed off. Why, do you think?
Yeah, it's a good question. And to be clear, we don't have all the details right now. But I would say the genesis of this event, or at least the genesis from an investor point of view of when this started, was there were reports that the next generation platform was being canceled. And they were scheduling the 8.8 Robotaxi event that same day was when the public announcement was made. I think there was skepticism even at that time when we were talking with investors about what they could actually show. But we have entered this almost hype cycle over the last several months ahead of this event, which our view was it did create some risk. It's much easier in our seat not actually allocating capital to say there was risk there. But I think at this point now, Elon's called himself the boy who cried FSD being full self-driving. You do have this unreliable or lack of credibility with the narrator now that's starting to emerge, because even showing a prototype is only the first step of actually commercializing a robotaxi. We think this is 2030 or potentially well beyond 2030 before Tesla has a product in the market.
Makes me smile. every time I hear that.
Important to note that Waymo and numerous operators in China, Baidu Apollo being the biggest, have robotaxis operating on the road today.
They not like us. They not like us.
It's not like Elon Musk was E.F. Hutton before this. Like we've gotten used to Elon Musk saying, I'm going to show you this thing, or here's what it's going to be. And then it's not exactly that. So maybe we shouldn't expect that this is the beginning of a great tumble for the stock, because I think the shareholders, the people trading Tesla, sort of expect Elon to be Elon. No? What's different about this time, if anything?
No, I think that's fair. I think there's always a willingness, for lack of a better term, to suspend disbelief with some of the promises that are made here. And to be clear, Tesla does have a lot of data advantages. We just think there's questions around, with the legacy fleet, if there's enough inference compute, particularly hardware 3 and earlier, to actually run FSD. And then the whole flywheel of putting the initial Model 3, Model Y vehicles on the Robotaxi network is at risk. And showing data to regulators becomes much harder because you don't have actual self-driving or level 4, level 5 testing data to show regulators to give them confidence that this can be commercialized. And yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's a fair point, though. The stock, at least from our vantage with a sell rating, never seems to react as negatively to actual negative headlines as it does to positive headlines.
Agree to disagree.
I think today was a step closer to reality, at least for what we see as a very overextended stock.
Okay. I mean, given the fact that the stock is up something like 40% in the past month, expectations of where we go from here, it does seem like there was a lot of short covering that maybe helped fuel the rally we have seen up until today. What's the next, I guess, impetus? What's the next catalyst for this name, whether it's higher or lower?
I would say what changed today was, I think 2Q earnings matter more than they did before. There was I would say, almost consensus belief with investors that you couldn't short this stock ahead of the Robotaxi event. Now that that's pushed out, I do think the quality of 2Q earnings matters a lot more. Our view is that the delivery upside this quarter was driven by heavy discounting, and that's going to show up in the form of negative gross margins. Makes it look much more like an auto business, and we can get excited about the energy upside, but I feel like that's well captured by our model. And the stock is trading at still 55 to 60 times our 2026 earnings estimates. It's really hard to justify this valuation without robotaxis. So I think earnings will matter more.
Me personally, I think Tesla has an incredible beat. I can't wait to see this broken down in the financials. In conclusion, it was a heck of a run. 11 straight days of gains. Every time the stock dips, that is an incredible buying opportunity. Buy on red days, relax on green days. That's what I plan to do for the foreseeable future. Despite all of that noise in the financial news media and the dip in the stock, I look forward to Tesla and Elon Musk telling us what is actually going on. Context and clarity is now what I crave, but until then, there really is no reason to panic. That's all I've got for you today. Be easy.